What is your highest round in Call of Duty Zombies? For those just starting out, you might say a simple round 10 or even 12. A moderately experienced player like myself may say something close to around 30 or 50, but for those even more experienced, the number could range from anywhere from 100 to even round 200. Regardless of what your personal highest round may be, it is safe to say that no matter when you play zombies, you will always try to go further than you ever had before, pushing the limits of your capabilities as a player as well as the personal data and analytics associated with the game. Now, Call of Duty Zombies by definition is described as endless waves of attacking zombies, in which you earn points to better your player in game to create a stronger arsenal. This has changed over the years obviously, with a multitude of other game modes being added such as Grief in Black Ops 2 or Outbreak in Cold War, but the definition for what Call of Duty Zombies represents has not changed. However, although almost every game in the series has this infinite wave of zombies formula, there has been one in recent history that has stuck out like a sore thumb compared to the rest: Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3 is one of the only games in the Call of Duty Zombies scene that has established a set round to which the player cannot pass, in which the round in question is round 255. The real question to this mystery, however, is why? Why is there a barrier to how many rounds the player can advance, and why would Treyarch do this on this game specifically? Well, if you're curious, let us dive into the real culprit behind the impossible round in Black Ops 3 Zombies. Before even discussing the analytics and real reasons behind why this game is not possible to beat, it is important to understand that the feat of even achieving this round is not an easy task. Compared to other high rounds in the past seen in World at War, many may believe that round 255 is nothing compared to the 11,000 something that someone can achieve in World at War Shinonuma. However, it is important to acknowledge that each round takes an excruciatingly long amount of time to complete in contrast to World at War. While gobblegums may be used to combat this argument, one must understand that the use of gobblegum is often strategic, and some have even managed to get to round 255 without the use of mega gobblegums at all. Anyways, with difficulties aside, round 255 is the highest round anybody has ever achieved on Black Ops 3 ever in the history of the game. Looking at the Zombies World Records website, we quickly find that every single top high round for every map has capped at 255, with a multitude of people reaching the round as can be shown here. Now, the common theory associated with this cursed round is that it is a bug in the game's system, something that was not intentional by the developers and something that just happens as an accident in the game's coding. However, while the game does get extremely buggy into the higher rounds with insane amounts of crashing occurring, this is actually not the case for round 255. The fault of crashes can be more associated with the outdated consoles and RAM usage the game can support. However, as shown in this clip, the game will run completely fine on 255 with a higher end PC, proving the round count is not what is at the culprit of these issues. Of course, this led many to download mods to attempt to surpass this round. However, even with a mod that can add rounds to your game, it will prevent you from going any higher than round 255. At this point, it should be very clear that this round was purposefully implemented by Treyarch to halt the player progression in the game. However, the real question is why? Why would Treyarch do something like this on arguably one of the biggest games the zombie scene has to offer? Well, to solve this, we actually have to go back in time, back to the days of simpler games in the 1980s. The number 255 is a very obscure and random number that generally has no meaning on the surface. Like, why would it not be more concrete, like maybe a 300 or even 250? However, despite this number seeming very out of place, it actually has some unique history that many don't actually see on the surface. Traveling way back to the year 1980 with the release of a popular game known as Pac-Man, we can actually start to see interesting similarities similarities between these games. Pac-Man, if you are unfamiliar, is an arcade game that saw this yellow circle moving around a maze-like area, avoiding ghosts that try to hunt him down, with its only goal being to eat all of the little white dots inside of the structure. It is a very simple game that offers a infinite leveling system, getting more difficult the higher one goes. However, what is very interesting about this game is that after the 255th level, the game will suddenly start breaking down, with half of the screen showing random numbers and letters that obstruct regular gameplay. The science behind this is slightly complicated, as Pac-Man was a 8-bit arcade game, meaning that each and every piece of data was stored into something called a byte. To understand how this works, I am going to attempt to explain what is called binary in the simplest ways possible. Binary is a counting system that computers use with two digits, the number 0 and the number 1 representing their own respective numbers. However, these digits can be used in their own unique combinations to represent other numbers in a system. For example, 1 and 0 would be the number 2, and 1 and 1 would represent the number 3. These two digits are called bits, with 8 bits being formed to create what is called a byte, which is obviously used to store data as mentioned earlier. There are a multitude of combinations involving these 8 bits that can be formed. For example, 10001000 represents the number 136, and 00011010 represents the number 26. The max number that can be achieved from this combination set would involve all bits being set to 1, which would get you the final result of 255. Sound familiar? Well, if you were trying to add one more to this, it would essentially reset entirely, pushing the byte back to the 8 zeros, with its value of course being 0. This would obviously be considered level 256 to us, but to the computer this is simply level 0, in which it was not supposed to have, meaning it breaks down as seen here. Another representation of why this is most likely in the game's code is seen with the max kill count in the game. The maximum kill counter that one can receive is valued at 65,535. This specific number for a kill count is valued at 2 bytes, which is of course 16 bits altogether, and of course if you were to try to max out this number with 16 ones, you would get the value of 65,535. Now obviously this data type is different to the one seen in the 8-bit system, and what is interesting is that Treyarch could have most likely just as easily used the 16-bit system seen with the kill count with the rounds, but they didn't. So simply put, the reason that round 255 cannot be surpassed is because of the data type being associated with the 8-bit system instead of a 16-bit system, which ultimately makes it impossible to further progression past this round. However, the question remains, why would Treyarch implement this 8-bit system for the round count in the first place? Well, there are generally two main theories as to why Treyarch would implement a system such as the one they did. The first theory that has sparked up in the community is that it was implemented because of the amount of data the game already has to keep track of. To this day, Black Ops 3 Zombies keeps track of more data per match played than any other Zombies game that we have seen in the history of the mode. There is so much this game has to keep track of, and I honestly believe that they cut back the amount of rounds to save space for other pieces of data that could be used to smoothen the gameplay. If you have ever watched an interview with Jason Blundell, who was the Zombies lead developer at the time, you will constantly hear him talking about how much of a struggle it was to combat memory and data usage. However, a couple years ago at the Black Ops 4 community reveal event, Jason actually was asked this question, and he responded with how it was an intentional decision and that it had nothing to do with the memory of the game at all. He most likely just did not consider that people would actually get to the round, as high rounding for previous Zombies titles was not actually as popular as it may seem today. The second theory I have as to why the limit was 255 was because they were simply paying homage to retro arcade games. As many of you know, Activision actually actually developed a multitude of arcade games way back in the past before their huge titles in the later years. These games would be games such as Pitfall and Ice Hockey, and they simply could just be adding a little Easter egg to pay respects to these older games. However, there is one more thing you must consider about this entire situation. As explained earlier, if you were to add one more to the 255 8-bit byte, the value would essentially reset and go back to 0, so why would the round counter not do the same? Well, as seen in this tiny little bit of scripting in the game's code, it is genuinely impossible to advance any further than round 255, even if you tried everything in your power, such as mods, to achieve it. Even using things such as the round robin gobblegum, one will actually find that the zombies all die, but the round never advances, and zombies will just stop spawning in entirely, making this a impossible progression. The trials and tribulations that one gets to achieving round 255 is one of the biggest feats the zombies world record scene has ever witnessed, and is truly one of the hardest achievements depending on what map you are playing. All this video was simply a theory. However, I do believe that all of the data shown in this video would completely explain everything having to do with the impossible round in this game. With that said, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.